A-Rod and the Captain, or as the New York Post might put it, A-Rat and the Captain. Unfair to Alex Rodriguez? Maybe. But if you ask Derek Jeter, he might nod quietly and smile, with maybe an awkward chuckle. But inside, he's probably thinking, sounds about right. Ever since the 1990s, these two legends of the game went through more emotional turmoil than you might see in your average Italian opera. If you're a fan of petty slights, lying, cheating, ego-stroking, anguish, therapy, and a reconciliation that almost no one is buying, then the brutal rivalry between A-Rod and Jeter might be your kind of story. And like any good story, these two characters embody the prototypical good guy and the bad guy, with twists and turns aplenty to keep the audience guessing. The good guy, of course, being Derek Jeter out of Kalamazoo, Michigan, where he was endowed with traditional Midwest values that then led him to his destiny, shortstop of the New York Yankees, the only position and the only team he ever suited up for. Jeter won 5 world championships for the Bronx Bombers, and 5 gold gloves. Undeserved? Probably, but still, while rapping 3,465 hits, which is 6th all time, and scoring 19,023 runs, which currently ranks as 10th all time. Even though Jeter's stats might make him one of the greatest players in history, it was the way he played that earned him universal respect. Whether it was diving into the stands to make a catch time after time, or belting some of the most clutch homers of the 2000s, Jeter epitomized class and a style of leadership that elevated the team above the individual. A-Rod didn't start out to be a villain, but all great villains have pure motives that get shredded along the way, and mountains of regret they must later climb. A-Rod quite simply was going to rid baseball of the steroid-era stats that mar the game, such as Barry Bonds and his PED-bloated 762 home runs. Rodriguez was the knight in shining armor, the child of immigrants from baseball mad Miami, the youngest to hit 500 and then 600 clean, untainted homers. It would only be a matter of time before our hero would save us from the cheaters. Many observers called A-Rod the greatest talent the game has ever known. He signed the largest contract in the history of professional sports when he was 25 years old. If only people knew at the time what was lurking under the surface. But on Friday, January 16, 2004, a pickup basketball player tore his ACL while spinning to run a fast break in Costa Mesa, California. That player was now Yankees manager Aaron Boone, then starting third baseman for the Yankees. He would be out for the year, meaning New York needed a third bagger for the 2004 season. Thus begins one of the most engrossing and illuminating chapters in the annals of athletics. One torn ACL would lead to the collision of cosmic forces, good and evil coming together in the Big Apple in the form of Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez. There are so many ways this story could have ended. Quentin Tarantino would have had A-Rod enticing Jeter to the dark side of Balco and syringes in the night, while Steven Spielberg probably would have focused on A-Rod's redemption and overcoming his inner demons. But Jeter wasn't corrupted, and A-Rod wasn't redeemed, at least not during his playing days. The two played about 25 feet apart, and often batted 2 and 3 in the Yankees lineup. They were literally side by side for 10 years, and while they played together for a huge portion of their careers, they hated every second of it along the way. It's not shocking that A-Rod and Jeter were both first-round picks, A-Rod earning the distinction of being the first pick of the 1993 draft, taken by the Seattle Mariners. The year before, in 1992, Jeter had been the 6th overall pick, but there were some very interesting elements behind these facts that played pivotal roles in the lives of both players. Jeter had almost been the first pick of the 1992 draft, owned that year by the Houston Astros. They eventually selected Phil Nevin of Cal State Fullerton, but not before a Houston scout and Hall of Fame pitcher named Hal Newhouser had begged and pleaded with the organization to take Jeter instead. Newhouser had scouted Jeter extensively and knew the kid was the kind of person you build a championship team around. When the Astros passed on Jeter, Newhouser quit working in baseball for good, ending 5 decades in the game. Jeter to the Astros would have ruined the captain's storybook ride as the Yankees shortstop, something he dreamed of since he was 5 years old. While A-Rod had 60 scouts or more at his games with Westminster Christian in Miami, what is less known is that Westminster Christian wasn't the first high school A-Rod had attended. He'd begun his career at Christopher Columbus High School, where he was the starting varsity point guard in basketball, but then got cut from varsity baseball because the coach didn't like A-Rod's flashy fielding style. The what if starts swirling. What if A-Rod had stayed at Columbus? Would he have gone from a skinny 9th grader to a buff junior? Even then, the rumors were swirling about A-Rod's muscle gain. And most importantly, what if A-Rod had followed his heart and gone to the University of Miami instead of entering the draft? Jeter had spent a year taking classes at the University of Michigan after his first year of pro ball. And lest you think no one ever turns down being the first pick of the draft, Ralph Sampson stayed all 4 years at UVA and turned down being #1 pick 3 times. Garrett Cole spurned millions to attend UCLA. There are countless other examples of players picking education over easy money. Jeter agonized over the draft versus becoming a Michigan Wolverine, but ultimately he couldn't turn down his dream franchise. Meanwhile, A-Rod never wrote an essay in the 8th grade about becoming the Mariners shortstop. In fact, with their historically limited budget, it was almost a certainty this would end up being a pit stop in his career journey. To say A-Rod's ascent to the big leagues was rapid is something of an understatement. The last high schooler to go straight to the majors was actually 3 separate high schoolers from the 1978 draft. Pitchers Mike Morgan and Tim Conroy for the A's, and catcher Brian Milner for the Jays. It hasn't happened since, probably in no small part because all 3 of these players ended up tanking. So the Mariners started A-Rod in Appleton, followed by stops in Jacksonville and Calgary, before he ended up in Seattle for 17 games as an 18-year-old. It's not hard to see why. Rodriguez hit 21 homers and drove in 84 runs during his 114-game stint in the minors. When he made his debut in 1994, A-Rod was the first 18-year-old position player to start a game in 10 years. In the bigs, he hit a paltry .202, and thus began 1995 in Tacoma before coming back to Seattle. In 1996, though, A-Rod was the full-time starter at short, and he rewarded the Mariners by winning a batting title with a .358 average and slugging 36 bombs while driving in 123, tallying a WAR of 9.2, the best for any 20-year-old position player in the history of the game. 1996 was a special year in the life of Derek Jeter as well. He won Rookie of the Year honors for the Yankees while leading them to their first World Series title in 18 seasons, a drought that owner George Steinbrenner raged against. But now he had his man, and somewhere Hal Newhouser was screaming at his TV. Jeter's own rise to the bigs was more the typical route. Rookie League, Low A, High A, Double A, and then Triple A, culminating in a cup of coffee in 1995 with the Big League Club. Unlike A-Rod, there were times that Jeter doubted himself, especially after he hit .210 in his first year of pro ball while making 56 errors at shortstop. There was talk of him moving to center field. Scouts were calling New York and demanding answers on this first-round bust. But due to his determination, by the next season, he was the best minor league player in the country. 1996 also crystallized an important dynamic between Jeter and A-Rod. Jeter wanted to win, while A-Rod wanted to be personally great. If a picture says 1,000 words, then the 1997 cover of Sports Illustrated Baseball Preview says about 1,000,000. On it are 5 young shortstops, all shirtless: Alex Gonzalez, Edgar Renteria, Ray Ordonez, and then sitting next to each other, Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter. This was the high water mark in the friendship between Jeter and A-Rod, 2 budding superstars who played shortstop while perfecting their Zoolander blue steel gaze. When the Yankees went to Seattle, Jeter stayed with A-Rod, and when the Mariners came to the Bronx, Jeter was the host of a superstar sleepover. They spoke to each other frequently. "Are you calling your boyfriend?" was typical of the locker room banter that both players got from teammates. They'd even been some level of friends since meeting at a University of Miami versus University of Michigan baseball game in 1993, and had only continued to grow closer since. It made perfect sense that they'd connect, since both of them were blowing up around the same time. Yet the 1997 season for both was quite underwhelming, with A-Rod posting an OPS plus of 120, the lowest of his career before turning 35. He still hit .300 and homered 23 times, and though the Mariners made the postseason, they didn't make it far, losing to the O's in the ALDS. Jeter's Yankees were bounced in the ALDS as well by Cleveland, eliminated in 5 games. Both Jeter and A-Rod hit over .300 in the postseason, but both would look back at the campaign as an overall disappointment. The 3 seasons that spanned 1998 to 2000 would be pivotal for both Jeter and A-Rod. During that span, Alex averaged 42 homers per season with an OPS plus of 144. In 1998 and 2000, A-Rod had the league's best WAR. In 1999, it was Jeter who led in WAR, with his own OPS plus sitting at 136 those same 3 years. In other words, these two had elevated their games to the stratosphere, with one major caveat. During those seasons, Jeter won 3 rings, and Alex won none. But what if? That question hounds the career of Alex Rodriguez. What if in 2000 the Mariners had actually beaten the Yankees in the ALCS? That series is the one and only time that these two superstars went head-to-head in the postseason, with Jeter and the Yankees prevailing 4-2. A-Rod hit .409 with 2 homers and 5 RBIs, and Jeter matched him with a .318 average and 2 homers and 5 RBIs as well. They were best friends, right? No hard feelings. Wrong. In the offseason following the ALCS showdown, Alex Rodriguez signed a 10-year, $252 million contract with the Texas Rangers, at the time the largest contract in the history of professional sports by far. Asked why Jeter didn't have a salary like that, A-Rod revealed just how much losing to Derek had bothered him. He doesn't do the power numbers, he explained on ESPN. Makes you go, But A-Rod wasn't finished. Later that offseason, he sat down with his agent Scott Boras for an interview with Esquire magazine, in which he revealed the demons that drove him. Remember, this is A-Rod's best friend, allegedly, that he's speaking of. Jeter's been blessed with great talent around him. He's never had to lead. He can just go and play and have fun. And he hits second. That's totally different than third and fourth in a lineup. You go into New York, you want to stop Bernie and O'Neill. You never say, don't let Derek beat you. He's never really your concern. What? Derek Jeter had just won his 4th ring. During his career, Jeter would play in 158 postseason games and hit .308 with 20 homers and 61 RBIs. Derek Jeter could beat you, and in the biggest of games, in the biggest of spots. Derek Jeter had just beaten A-Rod, as a matter of fact. He got help from David Justice and Roger Clemens and on, but Derek Jeter was committed to one thing: winning as a New York Yankee. It seemed like A-Rod was more committed to A-Rod. Afterwards, Alex drove to Jeter's house in Tampa and tried to walk back what he'd said, but the damage was done. Jeter was and is a fiercely loyal person who treats betrayal as an act of war. There were no amends to make. The friendship was over, but the relationship was just getting started. A-Rod went to Texas and put up huge numbers for a last place team, but the numbers he put up are complete and total asterisks, and not really worth going too far into since in each of those years, A-Rod took performance enhancing drugs. After it was revealed that he'd failed a drug test in 2003, A-Rod had to come clean, which he did all the way in 2009. The real question is, when did he start using PEDs? There have been rumors that his usage began in high school, though A-Rod never admitted to this and no evidence has emerged to indicate otherwise. None of his high school teammates have said he used roids back then, and they haven't been shy about their feelings toward him. Former Twin star Doug Mankiewicz told a podcast that he thought Rodriguez would die a lonely man, that A-Rod never reaches out to his old pals from Westminster, that when he was with the Yankees in 2007, he couldn't believe the selfish behavior the Yankees tolerated from A-Rod. Now it's starting to make sense why he got cut from varsity his freshman year of high school. A-Rod claimed that the pressure he put on himself, and the culture of the game at the time, led him to the dark realm of cheating when he was with the Rangers. I mean, honestly, understandable. No doubt players were rampantly cheating, and in an arms race, if you take the high road, you might just get blown up. However, it's also possible that he cheated because he just had to one-up Jeter and winners like him, players who may not have had his talent level, but the respect of the baseball world. Jeter, for his part, continued to play well during the same period, as 2001 to 2003 continued his pursuit of excellence, with OPS plus seasons of 124, 111, and 125, a step down from his best seasons, but still well above average. He took the Bombers to the World Series in 2001 and 2003, only to lose both times, though in 2003 the Yankees did take out the Red Sox on an iconic ALCS Game 7 homer by Aaron Boone, the same Aaron Boone whose torn ACL would bring A-Rod together with Derek Jeter on the same team. The Rangers finally realized you can't win baseball games with one great player, who ironically wasn't really a leader. They had to move A-Rod's contract and start over, and having just seen that classic ALCS between the Yankees and Red Sox, Rodriguez wanted to be a part of that drama. But for the Red Sox, he was so eager that he was willing to forego about $30 million in his contract, which, not surprisingly, the players' union nixed. Not a good precedent. So that left the Yankees, who were willing to part ways with Alfonso Soriano and a player to be named later. That player could have been Robinson Cano. Instead, the Rangers settled on Joaquin Arias, who played for 8 seasons and hit 7 homers. Cano, meanwhile, played 17 seasons and hit 335 home runs. The Rangers also paid the Yankees $67 million to complete the trade, so New York got to keep one of the best second basemen in recent memory and pay A-Rod a fraction of his salary. Smiles all around, right? Wrong. One person wasn't smiling, and that person was Derek Jeter. While A-Rod said he was willing to move to third, he'd insinuated over the years that his defense was better than Derek's. In all fairness, it probably was, but A-Rod had violated Jeter's trust time and time again, and publicly, so it wasn't at all clear that the two would get along in the clubhouse. 2004 rolled around, and long gone were the sleepovers and the hanging out. Instead, A-Rod watched as Jeter became one of People magazine's most beautiful people, as endorsements rolled in, as he dated one model or singer after another, while A-Rod got married to his longtime girlfriend in 2002 and began a family. One player described the union of A-Rod and Jeter as, quote, phony, and that Jeter placed a premium on professionalism and doing things the right way, while A-Rod blew off the stadium staff and ignored fans. In short, A-Rod had become a kind of diva, something contrary to Jeter's worldview, at least within the confines of Yankee Stadium. But they were teammates. They had to work something out for the greater good. Hitting coach Don Mattingly pulled Jeter aside and told him of his struggles to get along with Wade Boggs, who had more superstitions than an octogenarian playing bingo. Not the easiest dude to chill with. Donnie Baseball told Jeter that he had to fake it with A-Rod. GM Brian Cashman told him the same thing, and maybe even try to get the fans on Alex's side a little bit. Derek's response? I can't tell the fans what to think. Well, he probably could have, or at least suggested it, because he was a god in NYC, but Jeter stayed out of it, his silence speaking volumes. In Yankees lore, 2004 was a painful year, and not just because A-Rod, a magnet for criticism and controversy, had joined the clubhouse. That was the year the Yankees blew a 3-0 lead in the ALCS to the hated Boston Red Sox, the year their rival would finally win after 86 years, ending the curse of the Bambino. In that series, in games 5 through 7, A-Rod went just 1 for 12 with no RBIs, while Jeter had gone 3 for 15 with 5 RBIs. So much for Jeter not leading and just having fun. At the time, Rodriguez seemed obsessed with Jeter, asking Yankees officials what charities he was involved in, and other non-baseball questions. Jeter famously said nothing about any of this in the media, so bland and focused were his interviews. His actions spoke for him instead. Specifically, the actions he took on August 17, 2006, during a game against the O's. The Yankees were down 10-2 in the 6th inning when Jay Gibbons hit a pop-up between short and third. Jeter called for it, and so did A-Rod. They sort of collided, and no one caught it. Then, neither of them hustled after the ball as it trickled into the outfield. Jeter just stood there, glaring. Jeter, not hustling? Had his anger at A-Rod turned him into this? While manager Joe Torre, Alex, and Jeter all downplayed the incident, Brian Cashman did not. He called Jeter into the office to let him know that appearances matter. It seemed like Jeter didn't hustle because it was A-Rod who screwed up, just like it was Rodriguez who kept talking to the media about their relationship. This media fiasco coincided with the Yankees losing in the ALDS in 2005, 2006, and 2007. Then, in 2008, the Yankees didn't make the postseason at all. This certainly isn't to say that A-Rod wasn't an MVP quality player during this period. He actually won the award twice, finishing top 15 every season, with as many as 54 dingers in 1 year, and OPS plus marks routinely around 170, making him almost doubly as good as an average hitter. But his clubhouse antics continued, and it had an obvious effect on team morale and cohesion. But with the arrival of CC Sabathia, the Yankees clubhouse turned on a dime. Gone were the cliques and backbiting that rankled the team. A-Rod got upset whenever Torre would call him out, but never Jeter. Now Sabathia was leading the team unity, and the Yankees came all the way back to win the 2009 World Series, Jeter's last and A-Rod's one and only. It had to have been a cathartic moment for Alex Rodriguez, if only he'd learned any lessons along the way. What voters didn't know around this time period was that Rodriguez had been given a temporary use exemption, TUE, to use testosterone during the 2007 season, and then one for 2008. Being one of very few players to get this medical clearance, no longer cheating, A-Rod was still juicing, but it would get worse. Despite admitting to doping in 2009, A-Rod kept on doing it, even after he ran out of TUEs. In 2010, while chasing his 600th homer and battling hip issues, Rodriguez was introduced to Biogenesis founder Anthony Bosch, who designed a protocol of HGH and testosterone to help A-Rod overcome injury-riddled seasons in 2011 and 2012, which had impeded his march to overtake Barry Bonds. He was busted in 2013 and suspended a record 211 games, which, after appeal, was reduced to the entire 2014 season. As irony would have it, that would be Jeter's last year in the bigs, his last season played without A-Rod on the roster. And in typical Jeter style, in his final at-bat in Yankee Stadium, he had a walk-off single, as though the baseball gods had scripted it 20 years ago, when Jeter broke in. After coming back in 2015, A-Rod still put up decent numbers, with an OPS plus of 126 and 33 bombs. However, he fell off sharply in his last season, at age 40, with an OPS plus of 58, making him about half as good as an average player. He looked the part too. His body broken from years of use, and the toll the drugs in his system had inevitably taken. No one remembers A-Rod's last at-bat. There was no great fanfare, no grand send-off. Alex didn't get a retirement tour, with every team wishing him well in his journey beyond baseball. No, the moment went by with nary a mention. One of baseball's titans was going off in the night, with zero hopes for a Hall of Fame plaque no less. In retirement, Jeter's legend only grew. He married a supermodel, started a family, and was part of the ownership group that bought the Marlins. And, above all, he continued to embody the picturesque image of a consummate professional. And that's exactly what Jeter wanted us to think about him, so carefully did he hide his private life. Heck, he even started his own online publication for professional athletes, the Players Tribune. A-Rod's legend grew as well, but in the inverse direction. Perhaps no one had talent like him, but alas, it's possible no one had ever quite cheated like him either. Out of passion and ego and desperation, he grew to be a wart on the face of Major League Baseball, earning the iconic re-nickname of A-Royd, while having nearly no fans left when he finished playing, except J-Lo. But then, Alex Rodriguez did something that few who make such monumental mistakes do. He owned it. Everything. He seemingly denied nothing, admitted all, and then got therapy. Not sports therapy, mind you, but actual cognitive behavior therapy that was hard work and helped turn him into much more of a charismatic figure. His work as a TV analyst showed fans a side of him they'd never seen. His intimate insights, his humor, his eloquence in 2 languages, and yeah, some at times questionable takes. But still, it was as if the controversy had never taken place, so mainstream had A-Rod become. And as for his relationship with Jeter, both men insist it's been repaired. Derek claims that since the death of close friend Gerald Williams, he's softened in his harsh judgment of others. They both said they went out and had drinks and cleared the air of all the bad karma that had flown between them. But never forget what one Yankees exec said of Jeter. No one wanted to talk to him about A-Rod. If you did, you are dead to him. The interviews the two have done recently can veer into cringe. Maybe Derek Jeter forgives, but he certainly doesn't forget. And for Alex, what benefits can be found in a true reclamation? He's one of the richest baseball players ever, with a successful brand of his own and a superstar for a partner. At this point, I doubt the public will ever get any closure on the situation, but hey, it's not like we were ever really owed it anyway. Now, thanks for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and click this playlist for more essay content just like this. Have a great day, everyone.